Hello, welcome to Not for Exam, and I am your host Sujit, and we are going to discuss basic concepts of rotational mechanics. Now we are going to discuss rotation motion of a single particle. Rotation of a single particle is simply circular motion of a single particle, and you also familiar with scalar relations in circular motion. Let a particle is moving in fixed circular path of radius r, and at some instant its angular velocity is omega, angular acceleration is alpha, and at the same instant its speed is v, tangential acceleration is at, and radial acceleration is jr. Then the scalar relations between these physical quantities are as v is equal to omega r, at is equal to alpha r, ar is equal to omega square r, or v square by r. Further, to understand rotational mechanics, it is required to know the vector relations in circular motion. Let's discuss vector relations in circular motion. The very fundamental definitions in rotational mechanics are the definitions of angular displacements and angular velocity. And by definition, differentially small angular displacement d theta is a vector, whether finite angular displacement theta is not a vector. This is because differentially small angular displacement d theta follows all vector properties, but finite angular displacement theta does not follow vector properties. One of these properties is that addition of differentially small angular displacement is commutative, but addition of finite angular displacement is not commutative. A very common example illustrating this property is given in almost all textbooks. In that illustration, as shown in the figure, from an initial position, a book or an object is given different finite angular displacements in different directions, maybe in xyz directions, and then the final orientation of the book is noted. Again, this same process is repeated from the same initial position, but the order of angular displacements are changed and the final orientation of the book is noted. It is observed that final orientations of both the cases are not same, which verifies that addition of finite angular displacement is not commutative and it is not a vector. When the same procedure is repeated with differentially small angular displacements, then it is observed that addition is commutative, which verifies that d theta is a vector. Also, by definition, angular velocity, that is the rate of change of angular displacement, is a vector, and it is denoted as omega vector is equal to d theta whole vector by dt. Rather, it is incorrect to write omega vector as d of theta vector by dt, since theta, that is the finite angular displacement, is not a vector. Also, for a particle moving in a fixed circular path, angular velocity vector by definition is in the direction of axis of rotation, and you can find exact direction by using right hand thumb rule. Also, you should appreciate that for a fixed circular path, any change in omega vector should be along the axis of rotation, so that final omega vector will be always along the axis of rotation. Therefore, angular acceleration, that is d omega vector by dt, is in the direction of axis of rotation. Let us assume a particle moving in a fixed circular path of radius r, and at some instant its position vector with respect to center of the circle is r vector. Its velocity is v vector, and at the same instant angular velocity and angular acceleration are omega vector and alpha vector respectively. Then by definition, vector relations between v vector, omega vector and r vector is given as v vector is equal to omega vector cross r vector. If we differentiate this, then we get dv vector by dt is equal to d omega vector by dt cross r vector plus omega vector cross dr vector by dt. Therefore, acceleration vector is equal to alpha vector cross r vector plus omega vector cross v vector. You can see that alpha vector cross r vector is along the tangent and omega vector cross v vector is along the radial direction. So, alpha vector cross r vector is tangential component of acceleration and omega vector cross v vector is the radial component of acceleration. So, acceleration vector can be resolved in two components, one component at vector along tangential direction and other component ar vector along radial direction. Therefore, tangential acceleration is alpha vector cross r vector, and you can see from figure that alpha vector is perpendicular to r vector, therefore its magnitude is alpha r. Also, radial acceleration vector will be equal to omega vector cross v vector, that is equal to omega vector cross r vector, that is omega vector dot r vector omega vector minus omega vector dot omega vector r vector. Since omega vector is perpendicular to r vector, first term in this expression will be 0 and second term will be minus omega square r vector. You can see that ar vector is in the direction of minus r vector, that is towards the center. Its magnitude is omega square r, and it is also called centripetal acceleration. So we are going to talk about motion of a rigid body. You already know that rotation motion of a single particle is circular motion of a single particle. Then what about rotational motion of a system of particles? So let's first talk about system of particles. System of particles may be classified in two types. One is continuous system of particles and other is discrete system of particles. Also, a system of particles in the form of an extended body may be of two kinds, rigid body or non-rigid body. If relative separation of any two particles of the system remains constant, then this kind of system of particles is called a rigid body. And if this is the case, then the rigid body will be incompressible, inextensible and unbreakable. Also, it will not change its shape or size under any kind of force or under any general motion. Let's take a look at three different positions 1, 2 and 3 of a rigid body under a typical general motion. Distance between 2 points A and B in position 1, 2 and 3 are AB, A dash, B dash and A double dash, B double dash respectively. Then AB will be equal to A dash, B dash, that will be equal to A double dash, B double dash, since relative separation will remain constant. And this is true for any 2 points of the rigid body. Let's see 2 points B and O, then BO will be B dash, O dash, that will be equal to B double dash, O double dash. Also, if you imagine general motion of a rigid body, then you will be convinced that general motion of a rigid body may be very easy or may be very complex. Therefore, it is prudent that at initial level, we have to first understand some typical easy motions of a rigid body, which are pure translation motion of a rigid body, pure rotational motion of a rigid body, and general plane motion of a rigid body. Let we first talk about pure translation motion of a rigid body. So, in pure translation motion of a rigid body, displacement of each particle of the rigid body is same. And you can easily convince yourself that this is possible when orientation of the rigid body does not change or body does not rotate during its motion. Let's take a look at pure translation motion of a rigid body. If displacement of a particle A in motion from position A to position A dash is RA vector, for particle B displacement is RB vector, for particle C it is RC vector, then RA vector will be equal to RB vector will be equal to RC vector and so on. Let this is equal to R vector, that is the displacement of each particle. Also, if total mass of the rigid body is m and displacement of center of mass is RCM vector, then by the property of center of mass, we can write that mRCM vector is ma RA vector plus mb RB vector and so on, and that is equal to total mass into R vector. From this relation, for pure translation motion of a rigid body, we can write that displacement of center of mass will be equal to displacement of each particle of the rigid body, which we can call displacement of rigid body. If we differentiate this, then we get velocity of center of mass will be equal to velocity of each particle of the rigid body, which we can call velocity of the rigid body. Similarly, acceleration of center of mass will be acceleration of each particle of the rigid body, which we can call acceleration of the rigid body. From the above discussion, we can understand that pure translation motion of a rigid body is equivalent to motion of its center of mass. Thanks for watching Not for Exam, and we are going to talk about pure rotation of a rigid body and moment of inertia. A body is said to be in pure rotation if all particles of the rigid body move in circular path with same angular velocity and plane of all these circles are parallel. Also, center of all these circles lie on a fixed straight line called axis of rotation. So, we can say that pure rotation of a rigid body is actually the rotation of the rigid body about a fixed axis. Let's take a look at a rigid body rotating about a fixed axis and having angular velocity omega vector at some instant. We can see clearly from the given figure that all particles move in circular path about same axis of rotation with same angular velocity, and all these circles are parallel to one another. Also, if radius of circle is r, then the speed of the particle is r omega. Also, the point located on axis of rotation will be at rest, and this understanding enables us to quickly find the total kinetic energy of the rigid body, which will be the sum of kinetic energy of all the particles. Therefore, the total kinetic energy of the rigid body in pure rotation is equal to kinetic energy of particle 1, that is half m1 v1 square, plus kinetic energy of particle 2, that is half m2 v2 square, and so on. That is equal to sigma of kinetic energy of ith particle, that is sigma of half mi vi square. Also, vi is ri omega and omega is constant. So, total kinetic energy comes out to be half of sigma mi ri square into omega square, and this term sigma mi ri square depends on mass distribution with respect to axis of rotation, and it is called moment of inertia or inertia for rotational motion. So, for discrete system of particles, moment of inertia is the sum of the term mi ri square of all the individual particles. And if the rigid body is in the form of a continuous system of particles, then this term will be the integration of dm r square for each differential element of mass dm located at a distance r from the axis of rotation. So, in this case, I will be integration of dm r square, that is equal to integration of r square dm with proper limit. H for pure translation, velocity of each particle is same, let the magnitude of this velocity is v, then total kinetic energy will be half m1 v square plus half m2 v square and so on, that is equal to half sigma m v square, that is equal to half mv square, where m is the total mass, that is actually the inertia for translation motion. Now, for pure rotational motion, the expression for total kinetic energy half I omega square is analogous to total kinetic energy in pure translation, that is half mv square. Here the term I is analogous to inertia for translation motion, and it is the inertia for rotational motion, and which can be calculated as I is equal to sigma of mi ri square for rigid body of discrete system of particles, and I is equal to integration of r square dm for rigid body of continuous system of particles. Also, it is important to appreciate that moment of inertia depends on mass distribution with respect to axis of rotation, And to find moment of inertia of combination of two or more bodies about same axis of rotation, we can use the property of integration. Let there is a composite body which is made from individual rigid bodies 1, 2 and 3. Then moment of inertia of this body about the axis of rotation is equal to integration of r square dm for whole body. And by property of integration, this is equal to integration of r square dm for body 1 plus integration of r square dm for body 2 plus integration of r square dm for body 3 and so on about same axis of rotation. Therefore, the net moment of inertia will be algebraic sum of individual moment of inertia of each body about same axis of rotation. And you can easily understand that in the same way as above, if a body is cut from another body, then we have to subtract the moment of inertia of the cutting part about same axis of rotation. And the above results are called superposition principle for moment of inertia. And we are going to calculate moment of inertia of some typical rigid bodies. Moment of inertia of a single particle of mass m and radius r for rotation in a circle of radius r is simply mr square. Moment of inertia of discrete system of two particles perpendicular to line joining them is sigma mi r I square, that is m1 r1 square plus m2 r2 square. Moment of inertia of a uniform ring of mass m and radius r about its central axis. This is a continuous system. Moment of inertia will be integration of r square dm. Here for ring r is same for each element, so we get I is equal to integration r square dm, that will comes out to be mr square. Moment of inertia of a uniform disk of mass m and radius r about its central axis. Assuming disk as a combination of differential rings of radius x and width dx having mass dm, that is mass per unit area into area of the ring. Now moment of inertia of the differential ring about the same axis is di is equal to x square dm, and by using superposition principle, total moment of inertia is equal to integration of di, and solving the integration gives I is equal to half mr square. Now moment of inertia of a uniform rod of mass m and length l about its perpendicular bisector. Contribution of element of length dx is x square dm. Then total moment of inertia will be integration of di with proper limits, and you can easily solve it to get I is equal to 1 by 12 ml square. Now moment of inertia of a uniform rod of mass m and length l about an axis passing through one of its end and perpendicular to the rod can be easily calculated as above, but only the limits of integration are changed. After solving, you get I is equal to 1 by 3 ml square. Moment of inertia of a uniform hollow sphere of mass m and radius r about one of its diameter. Take a differential ring at an angular position theta and angular width d theta. Its width is r d theta and radius is r cos theta. Its mass will be mass per unit area into multiplied by area of the strip, and its contribution in total moment of inertia is dmr square. And total moment of inertia I is integration of di, that can be easily found by solving the integration, which comes out to be 2 by 3 mr square. Moment of inertia of a uniform solid sphere of mass m and radius r about one of its diameter. Take differential part of solid sphere as a hollow sphere of dr thickness and having radius r. Its volume will be dv, that is 4 pi r square dr, and by multiplying with density we get dm is equal to m upon 4 by 3 pi r cube into 4 pi r square dr, that will be 3 m upon r cube into r square dr, and its contribution in moment of inertia is di, that is 2 by 3 dmr square, and integrating di with proper limit gives I is equal to 2 by 5 mr square. Moment of inertia of a uniform right circular hollow cone, mass m, radius r, height h and half cone angle theta about its axis. Take differential part of the cone as a ring in the form of a strip at a distance h from the vertex in ds distance, and its radius is r is equal to h tan theta and width is dl, that will be dh upon cos theta. Integrating contribution di of this ring to get net moment of inertia, that comes out to be half mr square, which only depends on total mass and radius of the base. Moment of inertia of uniform right circular solid cone of mass m, radius r, height h and half cone angle theta about its axis. Take differential part of the cone as a disc at a distance h from the vertex having thickness dh, and radius of the disc will be h tan theta, and integrating the contribution di of this disc, we get total moment of inertia comes out to be 3 by 10 mr square, which only depends on total mass and radius of the base. Moment of inertia of a triangular lamina of mass m and height h about its base. Take differential part as a strip parallel to base and at a distance h from the vertex and width dh. Each element of this strip is at a distance h minus h from the axis, and use property of similar triangle to relate length of this strip with its distance from the vertex, and by integrating di you will get I is equal to 1 by 6 mh square, which depends only on mass and height of the triangle. Then we are going to discuss perpendicular axis theorem. Perpendicular axis theorem is for plane lamina only. Plane lamina is a thin plane sheet. First take a look at the figure. This theorem is for plane lamina and for three concurrent axes where origin is on the plane of the lamina and the two axes are in the plane of the lamina and one is perpendicular to the plane. Let us assume x and y axis in the plane of the lamina and z axis is perpendicular to the plane. For a differential element of mass dm having coordinates x, y, 0, perpendicular distance from z axis is root of x square plus y square, perpendicular distance from y axis is x and from x axis it is y. Therefore iz will be integration of r square dm, ix will be integration of y square dm, and iy will be integration of x square dm, and ij, that is integration of r square dm, will be equal to integration of x square plus y square dm, that is equal to integration of x square dm plus integration of y square dm is equal to iy plus ix. Therefore iz will be ix plus iy. This is the perpendicular axis theorem, and this theorem is for plane lamina and for three concurrent axes where origin is on the plane of the lamina and the two axes x and y are in the plane of the lamina and the z axis is perpendicular to this plane. Let's see the usefulness of this theorem in calculating moment of inertia. Moment of inertia of a ring of mass m and radius r about a diameter. You can see from the figure that by symmetry ix will be equal to iy. Let this is I, that is the moment of inertia about diameter, and iz will be ix plus iy, that is equal to 2i. So I will be half mr square. Now moment of inertia of a disk of mass m and radius r about a diameter. So by using symmetry in perpendicular axis theorem, it will be half of half mr square, that will be equal to 1 by 4 mr square. Moment of inertia of rectangular thin sheet of mass m, length a and width b. You can understand that ix and iy are similar to that of the rod of length b and a, and using perpendicular axis theorem we get iz equal to 1 by 12 ma square plus b square. And we are going to discuss parallel axis theorem. Parallel axis theorem for moment of inertia is for all kind of rigid bodies. This theorem states that moment of inertia of two parallel axes, one of which is passing through center of mass, are related as I is equal to ICM plus ma square, where ICM is the moment of inertia about the axis passing through center of mass and I is the moment of inertia about a parallel axis at a distance a from the center of mass axis. Let the two axes are as shown in the figure and there is a general element of mass dm. If position vector of dm with respect to center of mass c is RCM vector and its projection in a plane perpendicular to the axis is RCM perpendicular vector, let A is the point of projection and with respect to point B on the parallel axis in the same plane, its position vector is r perpendicular. Then by vector addition, if you look at the figure, you will get that r perpendicular plus A vector is equal to RCM perpendicular, or r perpendicular is equal to RCM perpendicular minus A vector. Taking dot product by itself, we get r perpendicular square is equal to RCM perpendicular square plus a square minus 2 RCM perpendicular vector dot a vector. And by multiplying by dm and taking integration, we get integration of r perpendicular square dm is equal to integration of RCM perpendicular square dm plus integration of a square dm minus integration of RCM perpendicular dm dot a vector, since a vector is constant. Now integration of r perpendicular square dm is equal to moment of inertia about the parallel axis, and first term in the right side will be equal to moment of inertia about center of mass axis, and second term will be equal to ma square. This last term will be 0 due to property of center of mass. This is the parallel axis theorem, and let apply this theorem to find moment of inertia about some particular axis. Let find moment of inertia of a uniform disk of mass m and radius r about a tangent. Since diameter is parallel to tangent and passing through center of mass, also we already know that moment of inertia about diameter is 1 by 4 mr square. Therefore about tangent moment of inertia is 1 by 4 mr square plus mr square, that will be equal to 5 by 4 mr square. Let find moment of inertia of a uniform rod of mass m and length l about an axis perpendicular to the length of the rod and passing through any end of the rod. The distance from the center of mass axis is L by 2 and moment of inertia about center of mass axis is ml square by 12. Then moment of inertia about this axis will be ml square by 12 plus ml square by 4, that will be equal to ml square by 3. Let find moment of inertia of a uniform triangular lamina of mass m and height h about an axis parallel to base and passing through the centroid. If you look at the figure and apply parallel axis theorem, then you get I will be equal to ICM plus m h by 3 whole square. Since I is equal to mh square by 6, then you will get ICM is mh square by 18. We are going to discuss a very important physical quantity, torque. As we know that inertia for rotational motion is moment of inertia and the inertia for translation motion is mass. Also to produce acceleration in a mass we need force. Analogous to that, to produce angular acceleration or to change the rotational state we need torque, and the torque is a vector physical quantity which measures the turning effect of a force. Let's take an example of a door. For rotating a door or to change the rotational state or to produce angular acceleration, same magnitude of force has different turning effect at different distances from the hinge or when applied in different directions, and greater the force, greater the turning effect. In most general and holistic way, mathematically torque tau about a point O is defined as tau O vector is equal to r vector cross f vector, where r vector is position vector of point of application of force about point O. As shown in the figure, let resolve f vector parallel to r vector and perpendicular to r vector, and resolve r vector parallel to f vector and perpendicular to f vector. Let angle between r vector and f vector is theta, then f perpendicular will be f sin theta and r perpendicular will be r sin theta. Now magnitude of torque about point O will be equal to rf sin theta, that will be equal to r into f sin theta, that will be equal to r into f perpendicular. Also it can be written as r sin theta into f, that is r perpendicular into f. Here r perpendicular is the perpendicular distance of line of action of force f vector from point O, and f perpendicular will be component of f vector perpendicular to r vector. Also if tau vector is tau xi cap plus tau ij cap plus tau z k cap, and tau x, tau y and tau z are components of torque along x, y and z axes respectively. Then component of torque tau x, which is also called torque about x-axis, is equal to tau vector dot I cap. Similarly, tau y will be equal to tau vector dot j cap and tau z will be equal to tau vector dot k cap. And component of tau vector along any direction n cap will be tau vector dot n cap. And we are going to discuss torque on a rigid body under pure rotation about a fixed axis. Let a rigid body is under pure rotation as shown in the figure. Since body is only free to rotate about the axis, therefore net torque of all the forces will be along the axis. And component of torque of a force along the axis is only required, other component will be cancelled out by torque of other forces. Another important thing is that component of torque of a force along a fixed axis about any point on the axis is same. Let's take any 2 points O and O dash on the axis as shown in the figure. Torque about these points are r vector cross f vector and r dash vector cross f vector. And components along n cap are respectively r vector cross f vector dot n cap and r dash vector cross f vector dot n cap. Also r dash vector is equal to r vector minus o dash vector, and o dash vector is along the axis of rotation, that is in the direction of the unit vector n cap. Now component of torque about o dash along the axis will be equal to r dash vector cross f vector dot n cap, that will be equal to r vector minus o dash vector cross f vector dot n cap, and that will be equal to r vector cross f vector dot n cap since other term will be 0. Therefore tau n dash will be equal to tau n, which verifies that component of torque about any point on the axis is same. Let's see the usefulness of this result. It is easier to choose point O such that r vector is perpendicular to n cap, and let denote it as r perpendicular vector. Also in addition, if we resolve f vector along n cap, that is f parallel vector, and perpendicular to n cap, that is f perpendicular vector, then it is easier to find tau n. Therefore tau vector will be equal to r perpendicular vector cross f parallel vector plus f perpendicular vector, that will be equal to r perpendicular vector cross f parallel vector plus r perpendicular cross f perpendicular vector. Here r perpendicular cross f parallel vector will have no component along n cap, and r perpendicular cross f perpendicular will be along the axis of rotation, that is in the direction of n cap, which will be the component of torque along the axis. In complex cases when analyzing component is difficult, then component of torque along the axis is easily find as tau vector dot n cap. And we are going to discuss the relation between torque and angular acceleration in pure rotation of a rigid body. Let as shown in the figure, at some instant rigid body has angular velocity omega vector and angular acceleration alpha vector. For a general particle of mass mi having tangential acceleration ati vector and radial acceleration ari vector, tangential force fti vector will be equal to mi into ati vector, and radial force fri vector will be equal to mi into ari vector. The radial force pass through axis of rotation, therefore it will have no torque about axis of rotation, and torque of tangential force with respect to center of the circle is along the axis, and it will be equal to component of torque along the axis with respect to any point on the axis, which will be equal to ri vector cross mi alpha vector cross ri vector, which will be equal to mi ri square alpha vector minus mi ri vector dot alpha vector ri vector. Since ri vector is perpendicular to alpha vector, therefore second term will be 0, and so net torque on ith particle along the axis comes out to be mi ri square alpha vector, which will be along the axis. Therefore net torque of all the forces on the rigid body will be equal to sigma of tau I vector, that will be equal to sigma mi ri square into alpha vector. Since alpha vector is constant for each particle, that will be equal to I into alpha vector. Also net torque will be equal to net external torque plus net internal torque, and net internal torque will be equal to 0. Therefore net torque will be equal to net external torque, that will be equal to I into alpha vector for rotation of a rigid body about a fixed axis. You can see that this result tau net will be equal to I into alpha vector is analogous to Newton's second law for translation motion. Let apply this relation in the following examples. There is a disc of mass m and radius r which is free to rotate about the axis. A force F is applied tangentially on the disc at t equal to 0 when disc is at rest. Let find the angular speed after time t. Disc will perform pure rotation and direction of torque is along the axis and its magnitude is Rf. By the relation tau is equal to I alpha, angular acceleration is tau upon I, and angular velocity after time t will be equal to alpha into t. Let's see another example. There is a pulley in the form of a disc of mass m and radius r which is free to rotate about the axis. A string is wrapped on the disc and its free end is attached with a mass m in vertically downward direction. When mass m fall down, string will unwind and pulley will rotate. Since point P of the string is at rest with respect to pulley point Q, therefore P and Q will have same velocity and same acceleration. Also tension by string T produces torque which produces angular acceleration alpha, and since string does not slip over the pulley, therefore acceleration of point P and Q and also acceleration of mass m will be same as equal to r alpha. You can see that mg and reaction by pivot has no torque about the axis, therefore net torque will be torque produced by the tension T, and that is equal to perpendicular distance from the axis, that is the radius of the pulley multiplied by the tension force, which will be equal to RT, and by the relation tau is equal to I alpha we can found T, and applying Newton's second law for motion of the mass m, we get mg minus t is equal to m into a, And by using the above relations, we can find tension T in the string, acceleration A of the mass, and the angular acceleration alpha of the pulley. Let's take another example. A pulley in the form of a disc of mass m and radius r, which is free to rotate about its axis. Two masses m1 and m2 are attached by a string, and string does not slip over the pulley, only unwind. If m2 greater than m1, then m2 will goes down and m1 will move upward. Also, tension will be non-uniform due to the friction. Applying Newton's second law for mass m2, we get m2g minus t2 is equal to m2 into a, and applying Newton's second law for mass m1, we get t1 minus m1g is equal to m1 into a. Also, by the net torque on the pulley by the tension will be equal to T2R minus T1R, that will be equal to I alpha, that will be equal to half mr square alpha. Since the string does not slip over the pulley, therefore we can use relation A is equal to R alpha, and by using these relations we can found T1 T2 acceleration of the masses and angular acceleration alpha of the pulley. And we are going to discuss about work done by torque on a rigid body under pure rotation. As shown in the figure, that point of application of force is moving in a circle centered at point O, and position vector of P with respect to O is R vector. Displacement of point P in dt time will be dl vector, that will be equal to v vector into dt, where v vector is equal to omega vector cross r vector, and therefore work done by force F in dl vector displacement will be equal to F vector dot dl vector, that will be equal to F vector dot v vector into dt, which will be equal to F vector dot omega vector cross r vector into dt, that will be equal to box of F vector omega vector r vector into dt, that will be equal to r vector cross F vector dot omega vector into dt. Omega vector into dt will be equal to angular displacement d theta vector, and r vector cross F vector will be equal to tau vector. Therefore dw will be tau vector dot d theta vector, which will be equal to tau n into d theta, where tau n is component of torque vector along the d theta vector or omega vector or along the axis. If tau vector is along the axis, then magnitude of torque will be equal to magnitude of torque along the axis, and in this simple case dw will be equal to tau into d theta. If there are more than one force, then total work done will be sum of the work done by all the forces. Therefore dw will be equal to dw1 plus dw2 plus dw3 and so on. That will be tau1 d theta plus tau2 d theta plus tau3 d theta and so on, where tau1, tau2, tau3 are the components of torque along the axis. So dw will be equal to tau1 plus tau2 plus tau3 and so on into d theta, that will be equal to tau net into d theta, where tau net will be net component of torque along the axis of rotation. If net torque tau is constant, then work done will be integration of dw, that will be equal to tau into integration of d theta, that will be equal to tau into theta. Therefore for constant torque tau and angular displacement theta, total work done will be equal to tau into theta. If net torque is variable, then total work will be equal to integration of tau d theta. Now we can easily use work energy theorem by calculating work done by torque as w equal to integration of tau d theta, and by calculating rotational kinetic energy as k is equal to half I omega square for pure rotation of a rigid body about a fixed axis. Let's apply this in the following example. Let there is a cylinder of mass m and radius r, which is free to rotate about a horizontal axis. A string is wound up on the cylinder. One of the end is connected with a vertically hanging mass m, and other end is pulled down by a force F. System is started from rest, and we want to find out the speed of mass m when L0 of the string is unwound by force F, where F is given as F0 1 minus L upon L0, where L is the unwound length. Now length can be written in the terms of the angle rotated by the cylinder, and length corresponding to angle theta naught can be written as L0 is equal to R theta naught, and the unwound length L will be equal to R into theta, where theta is the angle rotated by the cylinder. So F can be written in terms of theta as F0 1 minus theta upon theta naught, and work done by torque produced by F, or simply work done by force F, will be equal to integration of tau d theta from 0 to theta naught, and which comes out to be F0 L0 by 2. Also work done by gravitational force is equal to minus mg L0. Also in the same time mass m will move upward by L0 distance, and the work done by gravitational force will be equal to minus mg into L0. Let at this instant m has a speed v and cylinder has angular speed omega, then since string is not slipping, omega will be equal to v upon r, and kinetic energy of mass will be translational kinetic energy of mass, that will be equal to half mv square, and kinetic energy of the cylinder will be equal to pure rotational kinetic energy of the cylinder, that will be equal to half I omega square. And by work energy theorem, total work done by force F and mg will be equal to change in kinetic energy, that will be equal to final kinetic energy, that is half mv square plus half I omega square. And from the above relations v comes out to be root of L0 F0 minus 2 mg upon 2m plus m. It can be seen from the above expression of v that F0 must be greater than 2 mg to pull the mass over the cylinder. And we are going to discuss very basic physical quantity in rotational motion, that is the angular momentum. Angular momentum of a particle having linear momentum p vector is defined about a point as L vector is equal to r vector cross p vector, where r vector is the position vector of the particle about the point and p vector is the linear momentum of the particle. As shown in the figure, angular momentum of the particle about point O is L vector is equal to r vector cross p vector, and if we differentiate this, then we get dLO vector by dt will be equal to dr vector by dt cross p vector plus r vector cross dp vector by dt, that will be equal to v vector cross mv vector plus r vector cross f vector. Here first term will be 0 and second term will be torque about point O, Therefore, tau vector is equal to dLO vector by dt. That means about a point, torque will be equal to rate of change of angular momentum about the same point. Intuitively, angular momentum tells about rotational state of motion and it measures the quantity of rotational motion, and torque changes the angular momentum. Also, if torque about a point O is 0, then angular momentum about that point will be constant. This is the principle of conservation of angular momentum, and we are going to discuss angular momentum of a rigid body under pure rotation. As shown in the figure of a rigid body in pure rotation about a fixed axis, angular momentum of ith particle is equal to Ri vector cross Mi Vi vector, as shown in the figure. That will be equal to Ri vector cross Mi into omega vector cross Ri vector, where omega vector is constant for each particle. That will be equal to Ri vector dot Ri vector Mi omega vector minus Ri vector dot Mi omega vector Ri vector is equal to Mi Ri square into omega vector minus Ri vector dot omega vector Mi into Ri vector. Since the body is in pure rotation about the axis, therefore component of Li vector along the axis is only useful to analyze the motion. Now component of Li vector along the axis will be Li vector dot n cap, which is equal to Mi Ri square into omega vector dot n cap minus Ri vector dot omega vector into Mi into Ri vector dot n cap. Here Ri vector dot n cap will be equal to Yi along the axis. That will be equal to Mi Ri square into omega minus Yi into omega into Mi into Yi. That will be equal to Mi Ri square omega minus Mi Yi square into omega. Therefore component of torque along the axis Ly dash will be equal to sigma of Li vector dot n cap. That will be equal to omega into sigma Mi Ri square minus Yi square. Since omega is constant, that will be equal to omega into sigma Mi Ri square. Since sigma of Mi Yi square will be equal to 0 by the property of center of mass, that will be equal to I into omega. This component of angular momentum is along the axis, that is along the omega vector. Therefore in vector form it can be written as L vector is equal to I into omega vector. Here we should careful about this, that L vector is angular momentum of the rigid body along the axis. Similarly, the component of torque along the axis, the component of angular momentum along the axis will also be same about any point on the axis. We are going to talk about angular momentum of a system of particles. Let's take a look at the given figure of a system of particles. Position vector of a general particle of mass Mi is Ri vector. Its velocity is Vi vector, and position vector of center of mass of the system is R vector, and velocity of center of mass is V vector. Also, let position vector of ith particle with respect to center of mass is RiCm vector. Therefore, by vector addition, Ri vector is equal to R vector plus RiCm vector, and differentiating it with respect to time, we get Vi vector is equal to V vector plus VICm vector. And angular momentum of the ith particle with respect to origin O is Li vector is equal to Ri vector cross Mi into Vi vector. Therefore, total angular momentum of the system of particles will be sigma of Li vector, that is sigma of Ri vector cross Mi into Vi vector. That will be equal to sigma R vector plus RiCm vector cross Mi into V vector plus VICm vector, which is sigma R vector cross Mi V vector plus sigma R vector cross Mi VICm vector plus sigma Mi RiCm vector cross V vector plus sigma RiCm vector cross M VICm vector. Here second and third term is 0 due to property of center of mass, and first term will be R vector cross MV vector, and last term will be angular momentum of the system of particle with respect to center of mass. Therefore, LO vector is equal to R vector cross MV vector plus LCM vector, or LO vector is LCM vector plus R vector cross P vector, where LCM vector is the angular momentum of the system about center of mass, and R vector cross P vector is the angular momentum of center of mass with respect to origin O. And we are going to talk about torque on a system of particles. For given system of particles, let general ith particle has mass Mi, and position vector with respect to origin O is Ri vector. Position vector of center of mass with respect to origin is R vector, and with respect to center of mass, position vector of ith particle is RiCm vector. Now torque about point O by the force Fi vector on the ith particle is Ri vector cross Fi vector, that is Ri vector cross F external I vector plus F internal I vector, where F external I vector and F internal I vector are the external and internal force on the particle. Therefore, tau I vector is equal to Ri vector cross F external I vector plus Ri vector cross F internal I vector. Therefore, net torque of force working on all the particles is equal to sigma of tau I vector, that is sigma Ri vector cross F external I vector plus sigma Ri vector cross F internal I vector. Here first term is net torque by external forces, and second term will be net torque of internal forces. Since net torque of internal forces must be 0, so net torque will be equal to net external torque. Also, Ri vector is equal to R vector plus RiCm vector. Therefore, tau vector is sigma R vector plus RiCm vector cross F external I vector, that is equal to sigma R vector cross F external I vector plus sigma RiCm vector cross F external I vector. Here first term will be R vector cross F external vector, and second term is the net torque of external forces about center of mass. Therefore, tau vector is R vector cross F external vector plus tau Cm vector This relation tau vector is equal to tau cm vector plus r vector cross f external vector is very useful, and also it is important to note that torque of pseudo force will be 0 with respect to center of mass, since pseudo force is applied on the center of mass. And we are going to discuss relation between torque and angular momentum. We already discussed that angular momentum about a point O is given as LO vector is equal to LCM vector plus R vector cross P vector. Here LO vector is net angular momentum of a system of particles about point O, that will be equal to sigma of Ri vector cross Mi into Vi vector. Therefore dLO vector by dt is equal to sigma dRi vector by dt cross Mi into Vi vector plus sigma Ri vector cross Mi into dy vector by dt. First term is 0 and the second term will be sigma Ri vector cross Fi vector, that will be equal to net torque about point O. Therefore dLO vector by dt is equal to tau O vector, that means rate of change of angular momentum about point O is equal to torque about point O. Now net angular momentum of a system of particles about its center of mass is sigma RICM vector cross Mi into VICM vector, and differentiating it with respect to time, we get dLCM vector by dt is equal to sigma dRICM vector by dt cross Mi into VICM vector plus sigma RICM vector cross Mi into dVICM vector by dt, or dLCM vector by dt is equal to sigma VICM vector cross Mi into VICM vector plus sigma RICM vector cross Mi into AICM vector. Here first term is 0 and therefore dLCM vector by dt is equal to sigma RICM vector cross FICM vector, that is torque about center of mass. From here dLCM vector by dt is equal to tau cm vector, that means rate of change of angular momentum about center of mass is equal to torque about center of mass. Also if we differentiate the relation LO vector LCM vector plus R vector cross P vector, then we get dLO vector by dt is equal to dLCM vector by dt plus R vector cross dp vector by dt, and that will be tau vector is equal to tau cm vector plus R vector cross F external vector. Here R vector cross P vector is angular momentum of center of mass and R vector cross F external vector is the torque of net force on center of mass. If center of mass is at rest, that is V vector is equal to 0, then LO vector is equal to LCM vector, that is angular momentum about point O. That means angular momentum about point O is same as angular momentum about center of mass if center of mass is at rest. Also from here we can understand that in this case net angular momentum will be same about each point and is equal to angular momentum with respect to center of mass. Here angular momentum about center of mass is also called internal angular momentum of the system. Also if external force is 0, then by the relation tau vector is equal to tau cm vector plus R vector cross F external vector, tau vector will be equal to tau cm vector in this case. So torque about any point is torque about any other point, and all these equal to torque about center of mass in this case, and therefore torque about any point will be same if F external force is 0. Here torque about center of mass tau cm vector is also called internal torque of the system. We are going to discuss principle of angular momentum conservation. We know that for any system of particles or any rigid body, net torque about a point O, tau vector is equal to rate of change of net angular momentum about the point O, and net torque about center of mass tau cm vector of a system of particles is equal to rate of change of angular momentum about the center of mass. Also we can see that if tau vector is 0, then LO vector will be constant. This is the principle of conservation of angular momentum. Also if torque about center of mass is 0, then angular momentum about center of mass will be constant. That is to say that principle of conservation of angular momentum is also true with respect to center of mass. If tau vector is tau xi cap plus tau yj cap plus tau zk cap, and LO vector is Lxi cap plus Lyj cap and Lz k cap, and if tau x is equal to 0, then Lx will be constant, and if tau y 0, then Ly constant, and if tau z 0, then Lz will be constant. And also if tau vector dot n cap is 0, then LO vector dot n cap will be constant. So if component of torque along an axis is 0, then angular momentum along that axis will be conserved. Let apply this conservation principle for angular momentum in the following examples. Let in this example there are two disks D1 and D2 of mass m1 and radius r1 and mass m2 and radius r2 respectively, which are free to rotate about their axis. Disk D1 is rotating with angular velocity omega naught initially, and disk D2 is placed on it from rest. We want to find out the angular velocity of the combined system. Since friction is the internal force, so its net torque will be 0 about the axis, and therefore there will be no torque along the axis. Therefore by principle of conservation of angular momentum, net angular momentum will be constant about the same axis. Therefore net initial angular momentum about the axis will be equal to net final angular momentum about the same axis. Therefore in this example I1 into omega naught plus I2 into 0 is equal to I1 plus I2 into omega. From here omega can be found very easily. Let's see another example. Let a uniform disk of mass m and radius r is moving on the x-axis, and velocity of its center of mass is v1 and angular velocity about its center of mass axis is omega 1. We want to find out net angular momentum of the disk about the origin. By using the relation LO vector is equal to LCM vector plus R vector cross P vector, we will get LO vector is equal to minus I omega 1 k cap minus R into m into v1 k cap. and we are going to discuss equilibrium of a rigid body. A rigid body is said to be in equilibrium if it is in translational equilibrium, that is net force on it is 0, as well as in rotational equilibrium, that is net torque on it is 0. Also, since torque about any point tau vector is equal to torque about center of mass tau cm vector plus r vector cross f external vector, and if net external force is 0, then torque about any point will be same and is equal to torque about center of mass. In equilibrium, f net vector is 0, therefore its component fx0, fy0 and fz0. And in equilibrium, tau net vector is also 0 about any point. Therefore, tau x is 0, tau y 0 and tau z 0 about any point. In this example, a rod of mass m is in equilibrium on two supports P and Q. Since rod is in equilibrium, therefore it is in translational equilibrium, that is f net vector is 0 and therefore its component along y axis fy is 0. Gives the relation r1 plus r2 minus mg is equal to 0. Since f net vector is equal to 0, so tau net vector will be 0 about any point. Therefore, tau c vector is 0, which gives the relation minus r1 into pc plus r2 into cq is equal to 0. And also tau p vector is equal to 0, gives the relation minus mg into pc plus r2 into pq is equal to 0. Let's see another example. A rod of mass m resting on a wall. Since rod is in equilibrium, so it will be in translational equilibrium as well as in rotational equilibrium. Therefore, f net is 0, that means fx is 0 and fy is 0. Also, tau net about any point is 0 and its component along z axis is 0, which gives the required equations. We are going to discuss general plane motion of a rigid body. In general plane motion of a rigid body, each particle of the rigid body moves in a particular plane and it does not leave its plane throughout the motion, and all these planes of different particles of the rigid body will be parallel to each other. Let's take a look at the given figure. A rod free to rotate about its point O, pivoted on a platform moving with velocity v0 vector. Let angular velocity of rod is omega vector and position vector of point P at a distance r from point O is rpo vector with respect to point O. Therefore, velocity of point P vp vector is equal to velocity of platform v0 vector plus velocity of point P with respect to the platform, that is vpo vector. Also, with respect to point O, point P is in pure rotation. Therefore, vpo vector is equal to omega vector cross rpo vector. Therefore, it will be in the plane of VO vector, since VO vector is perpendicular to omega vector. Therefore, for each particle, VP vector will be in the same plane always, and this plane will be perpendicular to omega vector. So, this kind of motion is called plane motion of a rigid body, and for plane motion of a three-dimensional rigid body, all particles move in circular path with respect to axis of rotation. Plane of all these circles will be perpendicular with respect to the axis of rotation, and axis of rotation is moving with a velocity v0 vector, which is perpendicular to the axis of rotation. This is the general plane motion of a rigid body, and this motion can be analyzed easily as a combination of translational motion of axis of rotation and pure rotation about the axis of rotation. And we are going to discuss free moving rigid body under general plane motion. We can understand that any line in a rigid body will rotate in the same way as any other line. Also, with respect to any point of the rigid body, any other point will have same angular displacement, same angular velocity and same angular acceleration. So, this angular displacement, angular velocity and angular acceleration is unique for the rigid body. Also, for a rigid body under general plane motion, we can choose any axis perpendicular to the plane of motion passing through any point on the rigid body and can analyze the motion as pure rotation about the axis and the translation motion of the axis of rotation. But any axis passing through any general point may move in a very complicated way, and its translation motion will be very difficult to analyze. But motion of center of mass of a free moving rigid body can be analyzed very easily, and so of the axis of rotation passing through the center of mass. Therefore, for a free moving rigid body under general plane motion, the motion can be analyzed easily as a combination of translation motion of axis of rotation passing through center of mass and pure rotational motion about this axis. Also, angular momentum of a rigid body in general plane motion will be in fixed direction, that is along the axis, which will be perpendicular to the plane of the motion. Therefore, the following results for torque and angular momentum are very useful in solving the problems. Angular momentum about a point O, LO vector is equal to angular momentum about center of mass plus angular momentum of center of mass about point O, that is R vector cross P vector. And also torque about point O is equal to torque about center of mass plus torque on center of mass with respect to point O, that will be R vector cross F external vector. Now take a look at the following examples. In this example, there is a sphere which is moving along the x-axis. Plane of motion is xy plane and its angular velocity is along the minus z-axis. Since it is an example of general plane motion of a rigid body, therefore this motion can be translational motion of center of mass axis and pure rotational motion about center of mass axis. Let's see another example of a rod freely moving on a horizontal floor. Motion is in the horizontal plane, so angular velocity will be in the vertical direction. And the motion can be analyzed easily as a combination of pure translation motion of center of mass and pure rotational motion about center of mass. We are going to discuss kinetic energy of a free moving rigid body in general plane motion. Let's take a look at the given figure of a free moving rigid body in general plane motion having angular velocity omega perpendicular to the plane of motion, and let velocity of center of mass is vcm vector. Let component of position vector with respect to center of mass of ith particle perpendicular to center of mass axis is ri vector. Then velocity of ith particle with respect to center of mass axis or with respect to center of mass, both are same, is vi vector is equal to omega vector cross ri vector, which have the magnitude omega into ri. Therefore velocity of ith particle with respect to point O will be equal to velocity of center of mass or velocity of center of mass axis plus velocity of ith particle with respect to center of mass axis. Now kinetic energy of ith particle is equal to half mi into vi o square, that will be equal to half mi vcm vector plus vi vector dot vcm vector plus vi vector. Therefore total kinetic energy will be sigma of kinetic energy of ith particle, that will be equal to half sigma mi vcm square plus sigma half mi vi square plus 2 vcm vector dot sigma mi into vi vector. Here last term in this expression is 0, therefore total kinetic energy will comes out to be half m vcm square plus sigma half mi ri square into omega square, that is half m vcm square plus half icm omega square. Therefore total kinetic energy in general plane motion of the rigid body is equal to translational kinetic energy of center of mass plus pure rotational kinetic energy about center of mass axis. Let's see some examples related to above findings. In this example, a rod of mass m and length l is moving on a horizontal platform. Velocity of its center of mass is v and angular velocity of the rod is omega. Therefore total kinetic energy is equal to translational kinetic energy of its center of mass and pure rotational kinetic energy about center of mass axis, that will be half mv square plus half icm omega square. Let's see another example. A uniform solid sphere of mass m and radius r is rolling. Velocity of its center of mass is v and angular velocity is omega. Therefore total kinetic energy is equal to translational kinetic energy of center of mass plus rotational kinetic energy about center of mass axis, that is half mv square plus half icm into omega square. And we are going to talk about rolling motion. A simple case of rolling which we are going to discuss now is the general plane motion of a rigid body of circular cross section moving on a surface as shown in the figure. If point P of the rigid body, which is in contact with the point Q of the platform, is at rest with respect to point Q of the platform surface, then this is called pure rolling or rolling without slipping. So in pure rolling, velocity of point P Vp is equal to velocity of point Q Vq. Here Vp and Vq are components of velocity of point P and point Q along the tangent to the surface at the contact point. You can easily understand that component of velocities of point P and point Q along the normal will always be 0 for the rigid body to remain in the contact with the surface. And for rolling with forward slipping, Vp greater than Vq, and for rolling with backward slipping, Vp less than Vq. Now take a look at the given case of a rigid body having angular velocity omega, angular acceleration alpha. Velocity and acceleration of center of mass is v and a respectively, and velocity of the platform is vq. For the given case of clockwise omega, velocity of point P, that is Vp, will be equal to velocity of center of mass plus velocity with respect to center of mass, that will be equal to v minus r omega in this case, h for the given direction of omega. Now in this case for pure rolling, Vp is equal to Vq, and if body is rolling on a stationary surface, example ground, then Vp will be equal to 0 or v is equal to r omega at any instant. Also this relation should hold continuously, and this is possible when a is equal to r alpha. So condition for pure rolling on a stationary surface is v is equal to r omega at any instant. Now for pure rolling with forward slipping, Vp greater than Vq, and for stationary surface, that is Vq equal to 0, Vp greater than 0 or v greater than r omega. Let's take a look at the given figure of a case of rolling with forward slipping. If Vp greater than 0, then friction will act in backward direction, and due to friction, velocity v of center of mass decreases, and due to torque of friction, angular velocity omega increases. Finally, when linear velocity v dash becomes equal to r into final angular velocity omega dash, then relative velocity of contact point will be 0 with respect to surface, and pure rolling start and friction stop acting. And for rolling with backward slipping on a stationary surface, that is Vq equal to 0, Vp less than 0 or v less than r omega. In this case, friction will act in forward direction, which increases linear velocity v, and torque of friction decreases angular velocity omega until final linear velocity v dash becomes equal to r into final angular velocity omega dash. Then friction stops acting and pure rolling start. And if surface is smooth, friction is absent, then F net will be 0. So v remains constant, and for F net equal to 0, tau net about any point is equal to tau net about center of mass So in this case there will be no change in the state of translation motion or state of rotational motion, and v and omega remain same. We are going to discuss velocity and acceleration of different points in pure rolling. Let's take a look at the given figure of a rigid body in pure rolling moving along a straight line. For continuous pure rolling, v is equal to r omega and a is equal to r alpha. Velocity of any point on the body is velocity of center of mass plus velocity with respect to center of mass, and acceleration of any point will be acceleration of center of mass plus acceleration with respect to center of mass. Now we can see that from vector addition that velocity of point r is v plus r omega, that is 2v, and velocity of point q and s have magnitude v root 2. Also we can easily find velocity of any other point by vector addition. Also acceleration of any point is equal to acceleration of center of mass plus acceleration with respect to center of mass, and by using vector addition we can easily find the acceleration of any point. Since acceleration of center of mass is a, and with respect to center of mass acceleration has two components, one is tangential acceleration, that is r alpha, and other is centripetal acceleration, that is omega square r. Now by using vector addition we can find acceleration of point p, point q, point r or point s or any other general point on the rigid body. Hello, welcome to Not for Exam, and I am your host Sujit, and we are going to talk about rolling on a horizontal ground. Since rolling motion with fixed direction of angular velocity is a kind of general plane motion, then all the concepts and results of general plane motion are useful in the rolling motion, which are as follows. Total kinetic energy is equal to translational kinetic energy of center of mass plus pure rotational kinetic energy with respect to center of mass axis, and net angular momentum of a system of particles about a point is equal to angular momentum with respect to center of mass plus angular momentum of center of mass with respect to point O. Net torque on a system of particles about point O is equal to net torque with respect to center of mass plus torque acting on center of mass with respect to point O. Net torque about center of mass is equal to rate of change of net angular momentum with respect to center of mass. Now let's take a look at the following example of rolling on a horizontal ground. A disc of mass m and radius r is placed on a rough surface of coefficient of friction mu with zero angular velocity and linear velocity v naught. Due to relative slipping, kinetic friction mu mg starts acting, and so acceleration of center of mass is equal to f upon m, that is mu g, and torque of friction with respect to center of mass is equal to r into f, that will be equal to ICM into alpha. Also friction will act until pure rolling starts, and we want to find out the time when pure rolling starts, total length covered in this time, work done by friction, also linear velocity v, angular velocity omega, and final kinetic energy of the rigid body. Since tau cm is r into f, that is ICM into alpha, so alpha comes out to be 2 mu g upon r, and angular velocity after time t, omega is equal to alpha into t, that is 2 mu g upon r into t, and linear acceleration is mu g, and when pure rolling starts v is equal to r omega, therefore v naught minus at is equal to v, or v naught minus mu gt is equal to r into 2 mu g upon r into t, and from here we get the time t when pure rolling starts, and that will comes out to be v naught upon 3 mu g. Also v is equal to v naught minus at, that is v naught minus mu g into v naught upon 3 mu g, that comes out to be 2 v naught by 3, and omega is equal to v upon r, that is 2 v naught by 3r. Also length covered in this time t will be equal to v naught square minus v square by 2a, that comes out to be 5 v naught square upon 18 mu into g. Now initial kinetic energy is half m v naught square, and final kinetic energy is half m v square plus half ICM omega square, that comes out to be 3 by 4 mv square or 1 by 3 mv naught square, and change in kinetic energy will be minus 1 by 6 mv naught square, and by work energy theorem total work done, that is also the work done by friction, will be equal to change in kinetic energy, that will be equal to minus 1 by 6 mv naught square. Here it is important to understand that since contact point is changing continuously, so work done by friction cannot be calculated easily by direct definition of work, so work done by friction will not be equal to F into L or mu mgl. Alternatively, we can use the relation LO vector is equal to LCM vector plus R vector cross P vector. Let O is the initial contact point on the ground, therefore net torque about point O, tau O vector is equal to torque of friction plus torque of mg plus torque of normal force n. Since friction force F is passing through point O, its torque will be 0, and net torque by mg and n will also be 0. Therefore net torque on the system is 0, and therefore net angular momentum LO vector will be constant, which is perpendicular to the plane of motion. Therefore initial angular momentum will be equal to final angular momentum, or r into mv naught is equal to ICM into omega plus r into mv, that is 3 by 2 mvr. From here we get v is equal to 2 v naught by 3, and sometimes this method is easier than the other method. We are going to discuss rolling on an inclined plane. Let's take a look at the given figure. of a uniform rigid body of mass m and having circular cross section of radius r and radius of gyration about center of mass x is k, placed on an inclined plane of angle of inclination theta. For sufficient friction, there will be no slipping of contact point and there will be pure rolling. For this case, A is equal to R alpha, and for translation motion, net force mg sin theta minus f is equal to mass into acceleration, that is m into A. And for rotational motion about center of mass axis, torque about center of mass is equal to F into R, that will be equal to ICM into alpha, or F into R is equal to mk square into alpha. From equation 1, mg sin theta minus mk square by R into alpha will be equal to m into A, and since alpha is equal to A upon R for pure rolling, therefore we get A is equal to g sin theta upon 1 plus k square by R square. And from the above relation, F will be mk square by R square into A, that will comes out to be mg sin theta upon 1 plus R square by k square, which is the required friction force to prevent slipping or maintain pure rolling. Therefore, maximum value of friction force applied by the surface, that is mu n, must be greater than or equal to mg sin theta upon 1 plus R square by k square, or mu mg cos theta greater than equal to mg sin theta upon 1 plus R square by k square, or mu greater than equal to tan theta upon 1 plus R square by k square. Therefore, minimum coefficient of friction required for pure rolling will be tan theta upon 1 plus R square by k square. Now let the body is released from rest. Acceleration and minimum coefficient of friction depends on radius of gyration k. We can see from the above relation that hk is larger, then A will be smaller, and so time to cover same distance will be more and velocity will be less after covering this distance, and required minimum coefficient of friction mu minimum will be more comparatively, as we can compare for the following bodies that radius of gyration of solid sphere k is less than radius of gyration of k of disk, is less than radius of gyration of k of hollow sphere, is less than radius of gyration of k of ring. Therefore, time to fall down a particular distance for a solid sphere, that is t of solid sphere, less than t of disk, and that is less than t of hollow sphere, and that is less than t of ring. If we sum up the above discussion, then we can understand that for pure rolling on a fixed inclined plane, contact point will be at rest with respect to surface, that is there will be no relative motion of contact points. Therefore, static friction will act, and static friction do not work, therefore mechanical energy will be conserved, and total kinetic energy gain on falling down height h will be equal to mgh. And if initial velocity is 0, then translational kinetic energy at bottom is half mv square, and rotational kinetic energy is half I omega square, that is half mk square into v square by r square, and therefore total kinetic energy is half mv square 1 plus k square by r square, or kinetic energy of translation into 1 plus k square by r square, that is equal to mgh. Therefore, kinetic energy of translation is equal to mgh upon 1 plus k square by r square. And we can see that if radius of gyration is larger, then kinetic energy of translation is comparatively smaller and kinetic energy of rotation will be comparatively larger. We are going to discuss how pure rolling is equivalent to a pure rotation. Let's take a look at the following example of pure rolling of a rigid body having linear velocity v and angular velocity omega. For pure rolling, relative velocity of contact points is 0, therefore Vp will be equal to 0 as shown in the figure, and it is 0 if the surface is stationary. Also, we can understand that angular velocity of a rigid body is a unique quantity. For general plane motion of a rigid body, angular velocity about any axis perpendicular to the plane of motion about any point on the rigid body will be same. Since angular velocity about center of mass axis is omega, therefore angular velocity about axis passing through P will also be omega, but point P is at rest with respect to surface point Q at that instant. Therefore, axis of rotation will also be at rest at that instant. Therefore, at that instant, motion is equivalent to pure rotation about the axis through P or Q. This axis is called instantaneous axis of rotation, and if we sum up this understanding, then we can say that in case of pure rolling, motion is equivalent to pure rotation about the axis through the point of contact with same angular velocity. Now we can see that this is equivalent to a pure rotation. Then we can find velocity of any point by the relation r omega, and also the direction of this velocity in the same way as in the case of pure rotation. We are going to discuss instantaneous axis of rotation in general plane motion of a rigid body. To find instantaneous axis of rotation, we need velocities of at least 2 points on the rigid body. Let's take a look at the given figure if velocities of 2 points are parallel. Since axis of pure rotation will be perpendicular to the velocity, therefore axis of rotation will be on the line joining the 2 points, and as shown in the figure, let point O is on the axis of rotation and is at a distance x1 and x2 from the points p1 and p2. Then v1 is x1 omega and v2 is x2 omega, and v1 minus v2 is equal to x1 minus x2 omega, that is r omega, where r is the distance between the 2 points, that is x1 minus x2. Therefore, omega is v1 minus v2 upon r. and x2 will comes out to be v2 upon omega, that is v2r upon v1 minus v2, and this gives the location of axis of rotation. And if velocities of 2 points are anti-parallel, then the 2 points will be on the two opposite sides of the axis of rotation, and therefore x1 plus x2 is equal to r as shown in the diagram, or v1 upon omega plus v2 upon omega is equal to r, or omega equal to v1 plus v2 upon r. Therefore x2 is v2 upon omega, that is v2r upon v1 plus v2, gives the position of instantaneous axis of rotation. And if velocities are not parallel, then point of intersection of perpendiculars drawn on velocities gives the location of instantaneous axis of rotation. Till now we have considered only 2 points, but also all other particles of the rigid body are fixed with respect to these particles, and these particles will also rotate about same axis, and so for the rigid body as a whole, instantaneous axis of rotation will be same. Therefore for this pure rotation, which is for an instant, concepts of pure rotation can be used for an instant. Let's take a look at the following example based on the above understanding. In this example of pure rolling, V will be equal to r omega, and axis of rotation will be perpendicular to V and at a distance r from the center. That is the location of contact point P. With respect to instantaneous axis of rotation passing through P, moment of inertia is equal to 3 by 2 mr square, and total kinetic energy of this pure rotation is half I dash omega square, that is 3 by 4 mr square omega square, or 3 by 4 mv square. Let's see another example of rolling with forward slipping. In this case, V greater than r omega, and let B is equal to x omega. Here V equal to x omega gives the location of instantaneous axis of rotation, and x will be equal to V upon omega, that is greater than r. Also, it is worth to remember that angular velocity of pure rotation about instantaneous axis of rotation will be same as angular velocity of the rigid body, which is unique. Let's see another example of a rod which is slipping down against a wall. Axis of rotation will pass through intersection of lines perpendicular to the velocities of points P1 and P2. Let OP2 is equal to r as shown in the figure. Then V is equal to r omega, and omega is equal to V upon r. That is the angular velocity of the rod at that instant. And omega is unique and will be same about each point on the rigid body. Let's take another example of uniform wire of mass 2m and length 2l, representing two sides of an equilateral triangle. Velocities of two ends are V as shown in the diagram. We want to find out total kinetic energy of this wire frame. Instantaneous axis of rotation can be found easily, which is the point O. With respect to the axis passing through, moment of inertia about instantaneous axis of rotation will be twice of ml square by 12 plus ml by 2 square, and omega is equal to V upon L by 2, that is 2V upon L, which is the angular velocity of the rigid body, and therefore total kinetic energy, that is kinetic energy of pure rotation about instantaneous axis of rotation, will be half I naught omega square. Also we can find velocity of center of mass in this case, as velocity of center of mass is equal to omega into distance of center of mass from the instantaneous axis of rotation, and then we can easily find the translational kinetic energy of center of mass, and also the remaining energy must be rotational kinetic energy about center of mass. We are going to discuss angular impulse. Angular impulse is the change in angular momentum due to large torque acting for a very short duration. Since dl vector by dt is equal to tau vector, therefore dl vector is tau vector into dt. Therefore, change in angular momentum is equal to integration of dl vector, that is integration of tau vector dt from 0 to delta t. If delta t is very small, then this change in angular momentum is called angular impulse, that is mathematically 0 to delta t tau vector dt for delta t very small. Let's take a look at the following example of a rod free to rotate about its pivoted end. A constant force F acts perpendicular to the length of the rod at a distance r from the pivot. Torque of this force is F into r. Let just after impact angular velocity is omega. Then angular impulse, that is this sudden change in angular momentum, will be equal to I omega, which must be equal to 0 to delta t tau dt or 0 to delta t f r dt. And for constant force at a fixed distance r, this will be equal to f r into delta t, that is tau delta t. Now we are going to discuss the relation between linear impulse and angular impulse. Linear impulse is produced by impulsive forces, and these impulsive forces may also produce angular impulse. Let's see the following diagram. A force F vector is acting at a point which has position vector r vector with respect to point O for a time interval delta t very small. Therefore, linear impulse delta p vector is equal to integration of f vector dt from 0 to delta t, and angular impulse delta l vector is equal to integration of tau vector dt 0 to delta t, that is integration of r vector cross f vector dt 0 to delta t. And if r vector does not change or there is negligible change during impulsive forces, then it is equal to r vector cross integration of f vector dt from 0 to delta t, that is r vector cross delta p vector, or angular impulse delta L vector is equal to r vector cross linear impulse vector delta p vector. And all this is for delta t very small. We are going to discuss rotation of a rigid body due to forces involved in collision. Impulsive forces during collision produce linear impulse, and this may produce angular impulse and change the state of rotational motion or change the angular momentum. Also, forces in collision are internal forces for the system, and if external forces are comparatively very weak, then net force on the system is net internal force, that will be 0. Also, net torque is equal to net internal torque, which is 0. So, linear momentum and angular momentum will be conserved. Let's see the following examples related with the above discussion. In this example, a uniform rod of mass m and length l rests on a horizontal frictionless surface. A particle of mass m moving with velocity v perpendicular to the length of rod collide with one end of the rod and comes to rest after the collision. We want to find out the angular velocity of the rod just after the collision. Initial linear momentum of the system Pi is m into v, and final linear momentum Pf will be m into vcm as shown. By linear momentum conservation, initial linear momentum Pi is equal to final linear momentum Pf, and therefore vcm is equal to mv upon m. And initial angular momentum of the rod about point O, that is the initial position of the center of mass of the rod, LIO is equal to mv into L by 2. That should be equal to final angular momentum LFO by angular momentum conservation principle, and that is equal to angular momentum about center of mass, that is ICM omega, plus angular momentum of center of mass about point O, that is 0. Therefore, mv into L by 2 is equal to ICM into omega, or omega equal to 6 mv upon ml. Let's see another case of the above example. Let particle stick to the rod after the collision. So what will be the angular velocity after the collision? Let velocity of center of mass of the combined system after the collision is v. Then mv equal to m plus m into v, or v equal to mv upon m plus m. Also, let center of mass of the system C dash is at a distance x from the center of the rod. Then x will be ml upon 2 m plus m, and initial angular momentum about point O, LOI, is equal to mv into L by 2. And final angular momentum about O is angular momentum about center of mass C dash of the system, that is IC dash omega, plus angular momentum of the center of mass, that is x into m plus m into v. And by using angular momentum conservation, we can easily find omega. We are going to talk about rotation of a rigid body about an edge on a surface and toppling. In general, toppling refers to turn or to rotate from an unstable position to stable position. Let's see some simple cases of toppling. First, see the case of a cube topple about its edge due to an obstacle or a ridge. As shown in the figure, let a cube of mass m and side length a moving on a smooth surface encountered a ridge and collide with it. Forces during collision will have no torque about the ridge O. Since collision is for very short duration, so we can ignore torque of mg and normal force n about point O. Therefore, angular momentum about point O, LO, will be constant. So, initial angular momentum about point O, that will be mv into a by 2 is equal to final angular momentum I naught omega naught, that is ma square by 6 plus ma by root 2 whole square into omega naught. From here, we can get angular velocity omega naught just after collision, and for the cube to topple about the edge, rotational kinetic energy just after collision should be greater than maximum potential energy mgh during toppling. We are going to talk about toppling on a rough surface and on an inclined plane. Let's see the following case. When the surface is rough, a force F is applied parallel to the upper surface. Friction force will develop to prevent slipping, and normal force N will shift towards the front edge to maintain rotational equilibrium. For rotational equilibrium, torque about center C, tau C, will be 0. Therefore, F into a by 2 plus F into a by 2 will be equal to N into x, that is mgx. And applied force F will be equal to friction force F until slipping starts. For this, 2F into a by 2 is equal to mgx, and so minimum value of F to rotate the body will be at x equal to a by 2. And for this F minimum, 2F minimum into a by 2 is equal to mg into a by 2, or F minimum comes out to be mg upon 2. So for rotation without slipping, maximum friction force mu mg must be greater than F minimum, that is mg by 2, or mu greater than 1 by 2. And so if mu less than 1 by 2, that is friction is not sufficient, then there will be slipping first, and in this case body will turn if net torque about C is greater than 0. That is mu mg into a by 2 plus F into a by 2 minus N into a by 2 greater than 0, or mu mg plus F minus mg greater than 0, or F greater than mg 1 minus mu. Once the turning starts, torque of force F about point P increases and torque of mg about point decreases, and the body will continue to rotate and later it will topple. Body will topple after a time and will not return back as torque of mg about P changes its direction in favor of toppling when line of action of mg crosses the edge. Let's see an example of toppling on an inclined plane. We can see from the diagram that line of action of mg crosses the edge at P at an angle theta greater than tan inverse A upon h, and in this case torque of mg about P will favor toppling and body will topple. We are going to discuss cycloidal path in pure rolling. Path traced by any fixed point on the circumference of a rigid body undergoing pure rolling is a cycloidal curve. Let's find the radius of curvature of this cycloidal path at topmost point of its trajectory. Velocity of topmost point v is equal to 2r omega, and acceleration of topmost point is acceleration with respect to center plus acceleration of center, and therefore tangential component of this acceleration is a plus r alpha and radial component is omega square r. Let radius of curvature at topmost point when point P is rotated from position P1 to position P4 by angle pi with respect to center is equal to r pi. For this cycloidal path, radial acceleration at topmost point will be v square upon r pi, and since ar is equal to omega square r, therefore r pi will comes out to be 4r. That is the radius of curvature of cycloidal path at topmost point. So we are going to find out the length of cycloidal path in pure rolling. Let's take a look at the given figure of a cycloidal path in pure rolling. Let point P on the circumference move from position P1 to position P2 and radius OP rotate angle theta. At this instant, instantaneous axis of rotation passes through point O and velocity will be perpendicular to OP. That should be in tangential direction. Also by geometry, OP2 let it is r dash is equal to 2r sin theta by 2, and velocity v theta at this instant is equal to r dash omega, that is 2r omega sin theta by 2. Now in dt time, path length traced at this instant, dl will be equal to v theta into dt, that will be 2r omega sin theta by 2 into dt, that is 2r sin theta by 2 into omega into dt, and omega into dt will be angular displacement d theta, therefore dl will be equal to 2r sin theta by 2 into d theta. By integrating dl, we will get total path length L, that will be equal to integration of dl, that will be 0 to 2 pi 2r sin theta by 2 into d theta, that comes out to be 8r. Therefore, length of cycloidal path in one complete rotation is 8r, and you can understand that omega and alpha only say about how fast the path is traced. We are going to find out radius of curvature of cycloidal path at any general point. As we have found in last video that velocity for angle theta, v theta is r dash omega, that is 2r sin theta by 2 into omega. Also component of net acceleration perpendicular to cycloidal path, that is in radial direction, ar is equal to a cos theta by 2 plus r alpha cos pi minus theta by 2 plus omega square r cos pi by 2 minus theta by 2. Since a is equal to r alpha for pure rolling, therefore ar will comes out to be omega square r sin theta by 2, that is actually radial acceleration at angle theta. So ar theta is equal to omega square r sin theta by 2, and therefore radius of curvature for angle theta, r theta will be v theta square by ar theta, that is 2r sin theta by 2 into omega square upon omega square r sin theta by 2. From here r theta will comes out to be 4r into sin theta by 2, and you can see that at topmost point theta is equal to pi, so r pi will comes out to be 4r. Also at contact point theta is 0 or 2 pi, so r0 or r2 pi will be equal to 0. We are going to talk about Mannheim curve and radial curve with respect to cycloidal path in pure rolling. Let's take a look at the given diagram of a cycloidal path in pure rolling. Radius of curvature of instantaneous circular path of the pure rotation about instantaneous axis of rotation, which is called the radial curve, at the topmost point on the rim of a rigid body under pure rolling is 2r, as can be seen from the diagram, and radius of curvature of path traced by a fixed point on the rim, which is called Mannheim curve, at the topmost point is 4r. Actually, Mannheim curve is the combination of radial curves at different instant of times. Thanks for watching Not for Exam, and we will see you next time.